Hello, welcome everybody. My name's Terence Carrol. I'm a software engineer from beautiful downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. I know it might be hard to imagine, but people really do live in Las Vegas. And I do get a chance to drive by the Strip on my way to work every morning. There's two things I work on. I work on a mobile app for video training, and I also work on a UI framework for using Angular 2 for a slot manufacturer. But enough about me, I'd like to find out about you. How many people here, by show of hands, are using Angular 2 in a production application? Ooh, wow, that's great. How many people are using Angular for a mobile application, Ionic, native script, PWAs? Okay, less, but still a fair amount of people. And how many people are interested in Amazon Alexa? Okay, great. You guys are in the right room, so congratulations. Nobody has to sneak out yet. So one thing I've noticed is that there's this influence between technology and movies. Now, I'm not talking about CGI or special effects. What I'm saying is that oftentimes the things that we see in our technology, we see in our movies first. And I think of it as cinematic computing. And it's things that we've seen before, they feel familiar to us, and we want it now, right? We don't want to wait anymore. We've already been waiting for way too long. For example, we had the iPad from 2001. That was like a movie from 40 years ago. And what I think is great is that they're FaceTiming back to Earth, and that what's also kind of neat is that they're sitting there eating next to each other, but yet they're staring at their screens just like we do today. The Apple Watch from Dick Tracy, the computer from Star Trek. Something you might not know is that you can actually switch your invocation or your wake word on the Alexa to be OK Computer, so you actually can say OK Computer to the Alexa. And of course, the personal assistant Jarvis from Iron Man.
Stock Expo model scan complete, sir.
How many buildings are there?
Am I to include the Belgian waffle stands?
That was rhetorical. Just show me.
And here's Elon Musk being Iron Man.
And then catch it. So this is kind of a fun way to interface with what is really a very complex model. Now we'll go from this to what we're able to advance to a few weeks after the wireframe, which is to...
And here's Mark Zuckerberg pretending to be Elon Musk.
Good morning, Jarvis.
Good morning, Mark. It's Saturday, so you only have 5 meetings. Room temperature is set to a cool 68 degrees.
Earlier this year, I started building a simple AI to help run our home. I talked to Jarvis using this app I built. It uses artificial intelligence to understand me and figure out what to do.
Max woke up a few minutes ago. I'm entertaining her.
All right, let's go check on her.
Good morning, Max. Let's practice our Mandarin.
Jarvis, your Mandarin is so soothing.
Shishe.
Jarvis also helps me get ready in the morning. Fresh shirt.
Fire in the hole.
Hell yeah. Jarvis knows when to make me breakfast.
Your toast is ready.
All right. It's time for my call with Shrep. Can you get him on the video conference line?
Setting up the VC room now. Remember to check on the AI guidance system for Aquila.
One of the best things about Jarvis is it could recognize people at the gate, let them in automatically, and then just tell me about it.
Mark, your parents are coming in.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
It's Jarvis.
And Jarvis can play all of our favorite music. Hey, play us some good Nickelback songs.
I'm sorry, Mark. I'm afraid I can't do that. There are no good Nickelback songs.
Good. That was actually a test. Okay, how about just play some songs that our whole family likes?
So now that we have the appropriate inspiration, let's actually get to work and spend a little bit of perspiration, because we want the future now, right? And we don't want to wait any longer. So some of the things that you've probably thought about with voice design are that you want to clearly present options. You don't want to have too many options, and you want to keep it brief when you're responding back to the user. Some less obvious things are that you want to make it clear when the user has to respond back to you, because they might not actually be able to see the device and see that the light ring is actually still turned on. So you can't assume that users know necessarily what to do, so it's helpful to have prompting and help options inside of your Alexa skill. And I think everybody's going to actually walk away today feeling like it's much easier to create an Alexa skill than they probably imagined. and we'll get to that here. So the first concept to understand is the invocation name. And in the example that we're going to use, we're going to create a Star Wars skill that will answer questions about Star Wars. Things like who is Kylo Ren, what is a Star Trooper, things like that. So the invocation name in this example is NerdBot. So we would say, Alexa, open NerdBot to start the program. Or we could say, Alexa, ask NerdBot who is Kylo Ren, and it'll answer back, a dark warrior strong with the Force. Skills are now auto-enabled. This is something that's changed. You might not be aware of that. What happened before was I'd actually have to go into the Alexa app and turn on and off skills. Now, as long as you know the invocation name, it will automatically auto-enable on the first time you use it. The interaction models, there's these things called skills, and today we're going to be building a custom skill. The other two skills that are available, one is a flash briefing, which you can think of as something that CNN or NPR would use to read your morning news, or a smart home skill that allows you to turn on and off lights or set the lights to say 50%. So the interaction model is that we have intents, slots, and utterances. And at the very bottom here, we have an example of an utterance. The intent here is the action. So use Wikipedia and the who action. Wiki who is the intent. And the parameter is the curly brace who at the very end. That's the slot. So you can think of that as a parameter. And the utterance is this entire phrase that I have on the screen, Wikia who is, and then who. So it's actually a very simple way to create a grammar. The server just responds over an HTTPS endpoint with JSON. It's something as developers we're all going to be really familiar with. The most typical way is that you're going to use Node.js and JavaScript to build these skills. In fact, if you use the Amazon official skills kit, you're going to probably use AWS Lambda in a serverless environment, but that's not necessarily the only way to create a skill. So we're going to start. This is actually a follow-along course. You don't need to have a ton of things to get started or to create a skill, but you do have to go to this website here. It's just a shortened link to the GitHub repo. Okay, is everybody at that point now? We're going to be using something called Glitch today. And Glitch is a product from Fog Creek Software, better known for Trello and Stack Overflow and things like that. Oops. And I've already set up a skill for our second part, but we're going to start from there and work our way to that point. So start from here, which is glitch.com/edit #chewy. You're going to need an Amazon developer account, which I'm assuming everybody has an Amazon account here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sign in. And you're going to see a little bit more than I am because I've already signed up for Amazon as a developer. Give you a little bit of time to get to that point. Is anybody still working through the sign-up process? Okay. While people are doing that, I will demonstrate glitch. So this is a Wikipedia skill. And Wikipedia is a Wikipedia just for Star Wars. So what happens is that we use this as our API backend. If you want to read a little bit more about it, you can take a look at the README file. And the first part that we're going to follow along is going to be coming from the setup.md. Okay, is everybody past at least like signing up for a developer account? Okay, great. So what's cool about Glitch is that you don't actually have to stand up a Node.js server somewhere out on the cloud. It actually does that for you. Whenever you don't actually have to auto-save, it actually automatically will deploy and send things out to the cloud for you automatically. So that's what's neat for our examples, that I don't have to have you have a Heroku instance out there, and yet you can still build a skill and have it live in the cloud today. The main app for this is the index.js. And if you want to change some of the phrases, you could say, okay, instead of saying, what tell you about the war and the stars I can, you can actually change that phrase to whatever you'd like. And this is just a standard Node.js project. It has a package.json file. There's no magic here. In fact, it does have an index.html page, which we can access by hitting Show Live. And it has a test form that we can use to simulate what the Alexa service does. So if I use the web form, I can say, launch a skill session. Or I can say that there's an actual intent. So I'm going to say intent is a who, and this is Star Wars, so we'll say Kylo Ren. Let me zoom that in there. And then you can see the actual intent that's being created. We can send the request, and then you can see the response back from Amazon. So here it's saying, Kylo Ren, a human male, was a Force warrior and a former Jedi trainee under his uncle. But that's no fun, having me read it to you. So I've already configured this, and I'm going to start from there so that you see the end result, and then we'll work our way back there. I have this Star Wars skill that's already been set up. I've already enabled it for testing. And I can say, who is Kylo Ren? It's going to give me that same service request and service response, but I can also play.
Kylo Ren, a human male, was a Force warrior and a former Jedi trainee under his uncle, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, before Ren destroyed Skywalker's attempt to restore the Jedi Order and became an apprentice of Supreme Leader Snoke of the First Order, given the name...
And what's even more fun is that we can use a simulator to actually talk to our device. And there's a simulator, who would be calling me right now? Oops. That we can actually speak to the device itself. So what it does is it loads our developer actions and automatically without having to enable it out in the public. Who is Kylo Ren?
Kylo Ren, the character in Star Wars, The Force Awakens.
Who is Yoda?
Yoda is a Jedi Master who trains Luke Skywalker in the ways of the Force.
So it's pretty fun, right? And there's a lot less work than you probably expected before you walked in here to get it started. There's actually, once you stand up your Node.js server, all you have to do is go through these 4 or 5 pages to enable that skill. And so the next step, if you follow along in the setup.md, will show you how to do that. It'll show you that there's the request, how to set up the invocation name, the interaction model, the configuration, the SSL certificates, all those configurations. So if you get lost, come back to this, it'll move you forward. But I'll show it to you how you have to do it. So come to test the skill on a web sign-up form. There's some links at the bottom of the page, and these are going to have all of the information that you need. You have your utterances that are already generated for you, so you can see Wikia who was, who is, what is. You can say a list of things. And so I'm going to delete my skill and start over. So in this case, I'm going to use the invocation name of nerdbot, but you'll have to use something else because I've already taken that. At the bottom here, it has a flag whether or not you're playing back audio. We're going to hit no for that. And as I mentioned before, the skill type is custom. Once you've done that, hit next. And you're going to have to fill out the intent schema and the custom slot types and the sample utterances. If you go back to the Wikia tester, it's all actually here for you. So come to the schema and copy everything in here. So that's the intent schema. We're going to have our utterances. That's the last one. And then we're going to give it the slot types, which are a list of things that it'll respond to. And those are from the bottom here. A list of who is the first one here, or actually the second one. Let's do list of pages. So copy that. That's going to be the type. And then to get the page itself, hit popular pages. Copy all of this. So that's our first slot type, which is a list of pages. We're going to do a list of who. We're going to do a list of what. Again, copying it from the what page. And a list of lists. So that's all the slot types. We have the utterances, and we have the intent schema. And some of these things look familiar to us, right? List of who. And if you're familiar with Android or iOS development, the intents probably look familiar to you as well. We'll say next. If you're using the Amazon Skills Kit, you'll probably use the Lambda function. In this case, we're going to use an HTTPS. We're going to say that we're in North America. And it actually comes from our glitch page. So our glitch is called Chewy, right? And if you type Wikia at the end of it, that's actually the endpoint. It posts that if there isn't actually a JSON or an API response. And you paste that into the endpoint here. The account linking is a feature if you actually have to, like say, log into Spotify or something else. In this case, we don't need to. Hit next. This is a very critical thing. You have to choose the middle option, which means that you allow wildcard certificates, wildcard SSL certificates. And it's important to know that you have to have an SSL endpoint. You can't just do regular HTTP. At this point, you want to make sure that the enabled is checked. It should be by default. Then you should be able to say,
Luke Skywalker was a Force-sensitive human male Jedi Master who was instrumental in defeating the Galactic Empire.
now the next few screens are about publishing, and since we're not doing a public skill, it's not going to be necessary to get through all of this. You can add an icon, a store description, things like that. The privacy options, I think you'll know what to pick. People are not making money from our skill. We're not collecting personal information. It doesn't target people that are 13 or younger, and that you're not using any sort of encryption. Save, and that should be it. Load up EchoSim and test it and make sure that it works. Go ahead. Yeah, so I'm not sure if you know, but like you can actually use the Amazon app and ask like who is Jeff Bezos, right? But the key here was that you use the invocation word, right? So we said, Alexa, ask NerdBot who is Kylo Ren. We didn't say, Alexa, who is Kylo Ren? So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to look that up. And I'll show you another thing about how that works. Anybody stuck? Okay, what's the questions? What's that? On the HTTPS? So it is this right here. So this is Chewy, right? And the tester app is Wikia. It shows this, right? It's a little hard to see, but that's your endpoint. It's right here. More questions? Go ahead. Uh-huh. Nope, it's actually in the Wikia page. So if you go to this Wikia just like this, and you load it without an API server, the schema's here, okay? The utterances are at the bottom, okay? Then you have to create the custom slot types, which are 4 different things. A list of pages, a list of who, list of what, a list of lists, and then you have to copy, like for example, the list of who. You click on that page, and you just copy all of these items. It'd be a lot more work if you had to type every Star Wars character, right? Go ahead.
API changes and someone's added, does the skill have to be updated, or can it programmatically make the
Yeah, so that's a good question. In this example, no, because we've set up everything ahead of time, and Amazon builds a grammar based on that. But as you can tell, it's really easy to just copy it over, right? So we'll be ready for the next movie. In fact, the second part of this, we're going to make a new skill. And if you get through this part, we're going to make a skill for the Marvel Cinematic Universe instead. So that's part 2. Who else? Don't be shy. I don't bite. Go ahead. So you're saying in this file here, that's a good question. That actually comes up in the next part of it when you actually change that. The short answer is that if you go to starwars.wikia.com, there's an organization of categories, right? So like characters. And so the category of individuals is one of those. Some of this I can't, I have to like just provide it for you, right? Like it'd take too much time to go through everything. More questions? Go ahead. Yeah, that gets to be a little bit difficult because what you really want is to be able to have those things automatically be generated. And in this case, we're using something simple, and your case is more complicated. And there's actually a great thing from API.ai, which will build something like what you're looking for. API.ai is a company that got acquired by Google. If you do any sort of Google Home actions, then you'll be using API.ai. And what's neat about API.ai is, let me just log in here, is that it has a way to actually train grammars and to figure things out. And then once you do that, you're able to integrate with not just actions on Google, but Facebook Messenger, Slack, Twitter, and it'll export all of your Amazon Alexa settings. So that might be a better way to go. More questions? Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Once again, if you get stuck, go through the setup.md. It's going to give you all of the steps that you need and a little bit of background too. So I'll show you the skill information, the interaction model, the configuration. So in this example, it says project name. Project name would be Chewy. Go ahead, all the way back there.
Is it possible to conditionally format your response?
Conditionally format.
Otherwise, give you like, if it was going to return a really long list, would you say, before they start the list, say, hey, this is a really long list?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, and that's a good way to do it because you don't want to just spit out 50 names, right? Yeah. Questions? Okay. So by show of hands, who here thinks that this was easier than they thought it was going to be? Right? Yeah. Who thinks they could build a skill? Yeah. Not too bad. So the second part of this is that we're going to change this. We're going to remix the existing code, and we're going to ask questions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not going to get all the way through that yet. I'm going to give you guys a chance to catch up for a minute. But if you can imagine, you have to tell it that the wikia that you're going to use is now the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The skill name is something similar. The list of who is males, females, creatures, heroes, villains. You can customize all the phrases. And we're going to do just a little bit more, which is that we're going to connect this to a Angular mobile app. And so we're going to use Firebase. So who has heard of Ionic? Who's built an app in Ionic? Okay. We're going to use Ionic today. And Ionic is what they've basically done is used HTML, CSS, web technologies to rebuild the user experience of Android and iOS. So it's not a native platform necessarily, but it uses the tools that we are already familiar with, and it's the closest thing to a write once, run anywhere sort of environment. We can reuse the same HTML code that we use on the front end for our mobile app. It does also support native plugins, so it's not that we're going to be limited in any way. And they have a tool chain called Ionic, right? So if you want to actually create an app, you'd say Ionic start, project name, things like that. Okay, who still needs more time? Okay, I think we're all in the right place. This is the Firebase console. If you don't have a Firebase account, take some time to go create one. It's firebase.google.com. And then sign in with your Google account. So that's part 3. I'm skipping ahead just a little bit. And now if you go to the GitHub page, you'll also find the mobile app there. So if you get stuck, refer to the master README here. Part 1, remix, connect. If you don't want to use what I've already provided in the GitHub, you can actually do the challenging stage and create your own Firebase account and do all the steps without the GitHub repo. That should say, that's supposed to say add ion card in styling. Got lost because it has brackets. So this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe skill. I customize it just a little bit. It has the same form that we saw from before. You're going to want to do the same things with the schema, the utterances, and the slot types. You're going to want to create a new skill in Amazon's Skill Center. Alexa, get started. This is the list of pages. List of who? List of what? And then the list of lists. And if for some reason you spell something wrong, it'll tell you that you forgot something. This is just a little bit of practice since we've done it once before. It helps to remember what you're doing that way, to retain what we're doing. Copy the schema. Copy the utterances. So this time we're not using Chewy, we're using something called Marvel. Or actually what I want you to do is to go and remix my project and create your own. So load up Marvel. And there will be a button to remix it and create your own. Right there. If you remix this, it'll give you a new project name. So this is Sequoia Bee. And if you show live and go to the web form, you'll now have the HTTPS. So once again, the Sequoia Bee is just my remixed project. Yours will be different. Or if you want to just follow along with the example, you can just use the original, which was Marvel. Choose the middle option for wildcard SSL certificate. And test your service.
Stephen Vincent Strange is a powerful sorcerer and a leading member of the Masters of the Mystic Arts. Originally a brilliant yet arrogant neurosurgeon, Strange suffered a car accident that had resulted in his hands being crippled. When Western medicine failed to restore his hands, Strange embarked on a journey that led him to the Masters of the Mystic.
So in the privacy, same as before, no, no, no. And the export compliance is that you certify that it doesn't have any restricted encryption. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Hang on, let me turn that on then. Thanks for pointing that out. That kind of changes things, right? Okay. Is it public now?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to start up the Ionic mobile app. In this case, I'm not actually running the device simulator. I'm just going to run it in a browser. Oops. Is that big enough? Okay, good. It's hard to tell from here. So the magic here is that we're posting everything from the skill back to Firebase and from Firebase to the mobile app so that we can actually see what was spoken to us. So you can see this as more than just a user interface that's spoken. It can also be a user interface for something that you're seeing as well. In fact, the default Amazon Alexa app will show you responses there. So now we're tying that back into our own app using the power of Firebase. Okay, so I have to ask you guys, is that pretty cool or what? Can you see things, can you see potential use cases in your work? Like things that you want to try? Maybe spending time at home, like automating your lights or something like that? So who's stuck on something right now? Who has questions? Go ahead, in the back. I'm sorry, can you come up this way? I'm just having a hard time hearing you back there.
Can you please explain again how Android is related to the...
How Android?
Yes, the Iona.
Oh, the Ionic piece, okay.
Ionic.
So that's a good question. I'll come back to that in just a second. Who else? Go ahead. For the output. Now, it wouldn't be that hard to actually do more of it, and that's where API.ai would come into play because that can actually do more like translations. Like it's an automated AI platform, and right now we're just basically kind of responding back to things that are canned responses, right? So what I'm trying to do is actually show you what the Amazon app looks like. So usually you can use QuickTime to actually record the screen. I'm not sure if that's working right now. Okay, so it's not. Can you guys somewhat see that? Maybe? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, who is Jeff Bezos?
Jeffrey Preston Bezos, born January 12, 1964, is the founder, president, chief executive officer, and chairman of the board.
And so that's in the Amazon app. And if you look in the Alexa app, it says, who is Jeff Bezos in a card. So what we're doing is bringing that same interaction to our mobile app. So does that explain like why we're building a mobile app in? If you have the Amazon app, you don't need the machine. And what you might not have known is that the Fire tablet and the Fire TV also have Alexa. So you can say that to your television, and you can see the response on the television as well. Go ahead.
So if we enable this skill on our Amazon account, is it immediately available on the Echo, or do you have to publish?
You have to publish it. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get it approved. And they do a certification process, just like an Android, just like a mobile application. You can basically have private, which is developer only, and you can have public, and there's nothing in between. There isn't, to my knowledge, something that's like an in-between. More questions? Okay, so there's about 10 minutes left, and if you're interested in voice design, I want to shout out to Jeremy's session, which is all the way on the other end. He's doing voice design. And just pull up my slides again. So it's Grand Ballroom C. It's voice user interfaces. He's going to go over more about API.ai. He's also going to demonstrate Google Home. And he has a demonstration app where you're able to ask for world population facts. So it's pretty neat as well. The other thing that I mentioned was that API.ai does have an Alexa integration. So if you build it for Google Home, you're also building it for Alexa at the same time. If you want to talk to me more, I'll be at the Ask Me Anything. That's third floor, the Vienna room. And that's at 3 p.m. I'll be in the back afterwards as well. Thank you. Take a moment to rate this session. I really appreciate it. If you need to reach out to me, I'm Thack on Twitter, T-H-A-C-K. And everything that you saw today can be found from the GitHub page. So I hope you guys go out and build a skill of your own. And I appreciate that you guys gave me your time. Thank you.